Hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining us on June 1st for our next webinar in the series for 2017. Today, we're going to bring up a very unique part of our software, the Customer Relationship Manager, commonly referred to as the CRM. The CRM in the software is one of our modules that we offer to customers. It's part of your software subscription. It's going to give you a great opportunity to stay in communication with your customers and work with them on future appointments, follow-ups, things of that nature. As always, the webinars, we're going to try and hold our content to about 45 minutes and leave some time at the end for some question and answers. And as I'm hoping everybody knows, and if you don't, all of the webinars are posted in our help system under a section called webinars. They're all recorded. Any support documentation will be in there for future reference if you ever needed to go to that. So Doug Cresci here. I usually do the presentations, but we've got a little bit of excitement today. Ian Shepard, who manages or administers the customer relationship part of the software, is going to do the presentation today and walk you through some of the features and be available to answer questions at the end. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Ian Shepard. Ian, I'll let you go ahead and take over here, okay?
Great. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Shepard. As Doug Cresci mentioned, I do take care of the CRM 360 service inside of the software. What I'm going to present to you with today essentially is a quick agenda of some of the things we're going to talk about. I'm going to actually start with our CRM philosophy and kind of cover two types of customers, breakdown and maintenance customer. I'm going to quickly review, because I know last week you guys covered reminders in the software, so I'm going to quickly touch on reminders, default next appointment interval, as well as pre-booking your customer's next appointment. I'm going to go through a pre-booking script that a lot of shops that I've been working with are using. They're having a lot of success pre-booking the customer's next appointment, as well as some other options. Okay, and then I'm going to go through the cycle of the CRM 360 messages, whether it's an email or a postcard that's going out to your customers. So there's 7 messages available. I'll cover the cycle there. From there, I'm going to cover the contact and vehicle level control, essentially how you can control what the customers are receiving, whether at the contact or the vehicle level. We're going to touch on CRM reports, as well as go through custom postcard options. So we have seasonal, holiday mailers. There's some customer retention mailers available. The very end, I'll go through the CRM next steps. So if you are interested in utilizing the service that's built into the software, you'll end up reaching out to me and I'll walk you through some of these steps and we'll get you guys up and running. Okay, and then at the very end, we're going to open up for some questions. Okay, so Doug, I believe he has some poll questions to start with, and I will move that forward. Here you go, Doug.
All right, go ahead and click on, there you go. And then if we can get our administrator on the meeting to go ahead and launch that first poll question, please. Perfect. Okay, so question number 1, do you schedule appointments when posting your invoices? Always, sometimes, never. And as always, we give you guys about 30 seconds to get your answers in there. All right, so we're about 81% of the group has voted. Go ahead and continue if you want. Okay, so what we've got is 6% that say they always book a next appointment, 56% saying sometimes, and as you guys can see, 39% that say they never do. Obviously, our goal is to get you informed on what the software has available so that you guys can take advantage of these, and we'll hopefully see some improvement at the end of the meeting. We're going to do another poll question right away. Do you use the C360 email or postcard service? So if you do use it, if you have somebody that administers that for you, and we'll just give a few seconds for that one to go through. The answers are coming through pretty quick. Okay, so we're at about 86% of the people that have placed their votes. 37% of the people are using the CRM. 63% aren't. So again, our goal is to get you guys interested, educated, get your questions answered, and hopefully we can see this turnaround going forward if it's something that anybody wants to use. So we'll turn it back over to Ian at this point, and hopefully we can see if we can get some interest going with the postcard and email service, and better help you better understand how it works. So we'll turn it back over to Ian at this point.
Great, thank you, Doug. Awesome. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen here. So let me cover a philosophy that we have in terms of our CRM 360 service. So normal paradigm thinking for CRM in auto repair aftermarket is to chase people who are delinquent in their service. Okay, so most, if not all, CRM companies offer services that nurture this type of thinking. Okay, we can certainly accommodate some of that, but that is not our focus. Okay, so let me kind of back up here and kind of give you a bit of a preface between a breakdown customer versus a maintenance customer and how it ties in here. Okay, so customers with vehicles that are 3 to 7 years old are the best candidates for belief in preventative maintenance. Drivers of newer vehicles feel they are less susceptible to breakdown, and rightly so, and tend to return to the dealership so long as the vehicle is still under warranty. Drivers of older vehicles tend to take a more budgeted approach to the remaining life of the vehicle and will defer some preventative maintenance items if there is no tangible proof of strong belief that the preventative maintenance will extend the remaining life of the vehicle. Customers, of course, can actually change their belief of preventative maintenance based on the age of the vehicle, as well as between vehicles if the customer is a primary driver on more than one of the vehicles. Okay, and breakdown customers will be much harder to get scheduled for their next service than a maintenance customer, and the breakdown customer is much more likely to be delinquent on the next service interval than the maintenance customer. So let me move forward in terms of a paradigm shift. So our thinking is the big paradigm shift is instead of spending the bulk of your CRM effort or money on people who are delinquent for service and have made the mental decision not to return, we're going to spend the majority of our effort on customers who have agreed to the next visit and want to return. Okay, hence for the maintenance customer. So our CRM 360 solution is designed to reward loyalty. And so here's how it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to review in the software. I'm going to touch base quickly on reminders and default next appointment interval. And the reason I'm going to cover this is going to help us with the pre-booking process. And then Doug is going to show a few things there as well. So just give me 1 second. Let me get into the software. Okay, so right over here, if I go to the contact tab and search my name, I'll bring that up. I'm actually going to go into my vehicle record. I'll just double click on that, bring that up. So you'll notice that under the vehicle record card, there's a button here that says reminder. So if I click on reminder, you're going to notice that I actually have an oil and filter service reminder already attached to the vehicle. So this is set at 120 days or 8,000 kilometers. Okay, so this is going to project a date out whenever you're cashing the customer out or posting an invoice. This is going to recommend a date based on these intervals here. Okay, so the longer the customer is coming to see you, and if they have a reminder attached to the vehicle, then we're going to look at history over time and continually have a more accurate next service appointment recommendation. Okay, so assuming that you have this, great. If you don't have this set up for a vehicle, there's a second best option. Let me just close this out. So if I go over to setup and I type in location settings, let's go down to location settings. You'll notice the second best option is to schedule a next appointment interval, so our default next appointment interval. And so we have a checkbox here that says book next appointment when posting the invoice. And if they don't have a reminder attached to the vehicle, then it's going to recommend a date 4 months out. So I know this is sort of a refresher from last week, but the whole idea, the reason I'm bringing this up is that ideally you want to have a reminder. If not, you have this, but it's also going to take into account shop hours as well as stat holidays as long as you've entered them into the software. Okay, so from here, let's go into the pre-booking process. So Doug, if you want to take over here, I've just opened up that work order for you.
Sure. Okay, guys, so what you're seeing on the screen is Ian Shepard, that's the contact Ian was just showing you, along with the exact same vehicle that has the reminder set up on it for the oil change. Okay, so when we're posting the invoice or closing the sale with the customer, and we use the post option, the settings that Ian were just showing you are apparent right here under the appointments section. So since Ian has the system set up to book the next appointment, and in this case, the customer, being Ian, has a reminder on for his oil change, you're now going to see, since the oil change has been processed today, the software is now automatically scheduling the next appointment date based upon the information that was set up on the reminder that Ian just showed you on the vehicle. So at this point in time, this is when you would have a conversation, a short conversation or a soft conversation with your customer about scheduling their next oil change appointment. So this is exactly what Ian's talking about when we set these reminders up in the book next appointment. So Ian, you were going to talk a little bit more about this at this point, or did you want me to post this invoice?
Absolutely. So real quick here, so the biggest pushback that I get, so when I'm talking to shop owners about sort of the struggle that they have here when they get to this point, most of them are telling me that we have a hard time pre-booking customers for the next appointment. And I believe that most of it is just due to either confidence or the language that they're using. If you're already pre-booking appointments, great, continue to do that. Don't change with what I'm going to suggest here. But for those that are struggling with pre-booking appointments, we've come up with sort of a script that seems to get about an 80 to 85% buy-in. So if you're looking at, it's recommending a date for Friday, September 29th. So me being the customer, hey Ian, it looks like you're going to be coming due for your oil change or whatever the next service is on September 29th. Is it okay that we enter this into our scheduler so that we can send you a courtesy reminder closer to the day? Because I didn't use the word appointment, usually we get a much higher buy-in from the customer. Customer says, yes, great, we book it in and move forward. Then they're going to get those reminders that are more of a softer approach. There are a couple other things just before you move forward, Doug. I have some shops that will book it as an appointment, but put a small incentive, meaning they'll actually offer a $5 to $15 discount off of their next service as a sort of by pre-booking. This is sort of what they qualified for. They're qualified for these vouchers. Or thirdly, I have quite a few shops that'll actually book to the Sunday. So they'll change this, move it to the Sunday, and they'll start sending out reminders. It's a softer approach, and say, we have you scheduled for the week of, or you're coming due for service the week of, and then they take that approach and they adjust all of their processes to follow that process. Okay, so I'll have you take it along from here, Doug, because I know you were going to post this, and we're going to show how that goes into the scheduler.
Perfect. The only required entry, as you guys can see in the pink area for the odometer, is the outgoing odometer reading. I'm just going to put in here about 100,000 kilometers. And just as an FYI, while we're here, we did touch on it last week, but let me remind you, you're not committed to this date. You can easily click on the date and get your calendar. If the customer says, no, that day is not good for me, so you can schedule these however you want. And like Ian said, if you wanted to do a Sunday booking and then follow up with a phone call or something, that's another option, but you are in control of what date you schedule. Again, you also have the ability to edit the reminder from this point if there's any change to the frequency, so just keep those things in mind. Okay, so we've got our odometer reading in. We're scheduling our next appointment. I'll click on next, as you guys all know at the bottom. We'll identify the method of payment and add that to the list. Go ahead and click on next. And here we're not going to print anything. It's just going to, chop down another tree for us. So we're just going to go ahead and post the job and get the appointment booked. Okay, so when we posted the job, you're going to get a notification that the work order has been posted and appointment has been scheduled for Friday. Okay, so bingo, we're done. And now here's what happened. So that invoice has been posted. The customer's got their copy. They're on their way. And if we look under future appointments, now that was September, so that's more than 30 days out. So what I'm going to do is do a search. And in my search for that appointment, okay, all we're really going to do at this point is identify who we're looking for. So I'm just going to stretch this date out a little bit. Okay, I'll just go out to the end of September. I think it was the 29th or whatever. But here's how you can search for those future appointments also. First name, last name. Now, it's pretty simple for Ian because that's the only appointment he's got. And if we open that up, there's the appointment we just booked when we posted Ian's invoice. Okay, so Ian, does this go back to you now?
I believe it does. Perfect. Awesome. So let me just cancel out of here. So essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to see how that moves forward into the CRM 360 service. Okay, so let me go over to the Setup tab, and I'm going to do another search here, type in CRM, and you're going to notice that there's email services, postcard services, and external services. So what we're going to talk about today are these top two right here. Okay, so let me start with email services. Now essentially these intervals and sort of the cycle of this will work for both email and postcard, but I'm going to cover it here on the email side first, and then I'll hop over to postcards. So customer comes in, as I just did as a customer. I came in, had some work done. One day after that invoice, you have the ability to send out the customer a thank you message. So if I bring up a sample here, I go to thank you, just do a quick view here. You're going to see this is a fully customized email. Thank you. It's got the shop information, fully designed based on your branding. We can fully customize that for you. So the whole idea behind this message is, thank you for your business, and then we're asking the customer for some type of feedback, whether it's a simple survey that we can create for you, or ideally, if we can push to a survey that's either already on your website or perhaps a social media page, whether it's Facebook, Google, Yelp, or anything else that's driving traffic to your sites or your pages so that we can bring more customers to you. Okay, so the idea is we can have one feedback option, we can have multiples, whatever you like to do here. Okay, so from there, as we talked about, whenever you're going through that pre-booking process with the customer, again, our primary method to send out reminders is based on an appointment. But if we're going to go back to sort of the soft approach that I was talking about, if you look at reminder 1 and reminder 2, these are 10 days before the appointment and 2 days before the appointment. So if I look at reminder 1, this goes back to the September 29th date that we just entered. If I view this, again, each message is customizable and unique. Where did the time go? It's time for your next service. So you'll notice in here it says, when you were last in, we set your next service for. It says the date and time. If this date is not convenient for you, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll confirm and send you a reminder a couple days before. So the idea behind this is you'll notice that I didn't use the word appointment. If you're accustomed to using the word appointment, great. But in this case, I'm using more of a softer approach. I'm not going to get the customer upset because, I don't remember booking an appointment, something like that. We're just saying that we scheduled their next service. Okay, so that's reminder 1, giving them an opportunity to also reschedule if they'd like. Okay, so reminder 2, which is 2 days before the appointment, if the customer has not changed the appointment or called in or emailed or made any changes there, then that second one is really designed as a confirmation. Okay, and of course this will also handle, let's say you have a customer that calls in today and they want to come in on Tuesday, then of course on Sunday they'll get that reminder saying that they're coming in for service. So let me just show you a sample of that. So again, service confirmation, you can have the subject say appointment confirmation, whatever you like. Your next service appointment has been set for this date and time. We look forward to seeing you. It's fairly straightforward. Okay, so from there, let me go into no-show. So there's a few scenarios here. In some cases, some of the shop owners that I talk to, they indicate that, if a customer misses an appointment, they'll make a phone call. So just note that any of these messages, if you don't want to send, let's say a particular one out, you would just come in here and we would enter a 0, and then that particular message does not go anywhere. So for example, if you're accustomed to making phone calls, great, continue to do that. If you see value in also sending an email and or a postcard, then we can certainly do that as well. So just look at the no-show. I'll go and view here. Again, another custom email. Oops, we missed you. We had you scheduled for service on this date and time. Please give us a call and we'd be happy to reschedule. Fairly straightforward. Okay, let me close that off. Let me go into deferred work. Now, most shop owners that I talk to obviously utilize this feature. The average shop is sending out a deferred reminder between 14 and 30 days out. I've got it set at 21 days, which is sort of the average. The idea behind this is most people are deferring work usually due to budget, so giving them 21 days to come back in to take care of some of these services is usually enough time. So here under deferred work, if I just bring up a sample here, so your priorities are your safety is our first priority. When you were last in for service, there were recommendations that we believe will improve the performance and operation of your vehicle. These services included, and we can list the top 3, top 5, or on email exclusively, we can do the entire list if you like. And again, what we're asking here is the customer to basically book an appointment. So I have some shops that, in this case, they'll actually include a coupon or an offer or a special. Sometimes we will link out to their website where the current specials are. So rather than telling them the coupon or special that they want to use, just say, here are some of the offers, and maybe you can utilize them. Okay, so that's how deferred work works. So from there, going back, if you remember at the beginning, we talked about the difference between a maintenance customer and a breakdown customer. So all of these 4 or 5 messages cover customers that believe in preventative maintenance. However, you may still get a customer that says, well, I don't want to pre-book, I'll just watch my sticker, or I'll call if I have a problem. Okay, so this is where the inactive and the inactive 2 come into play. Now I've got these set up to be, again, more of a courtesy reminder. However, if you want to use these as a true inactive message, perhaps you're going to set it up at 6, 9, maybe even 12 months out. And it's something along the lines of, where did the customer go? Did we do something wrong? Did they sell their vehicle? Trying to figure out where has the customer gone and how can we get them back in, okay? But this is not our focus. Our focus is booking the appointments, okay? But again, for those that have not done this, we still can send them a courtesy reminder. So if I look at inactive the way I've got it set here, let me just do a preview. You'll notice it says due for service with a question mark. And according to our records, your vehicle was last in for service on this date. Based on this information, your vehicle is coming due for an oil change and maintenance inspection, or whatever you want to label that service. Okay, again, all of this is fully customizable. And again, you're just welcoming the customer to call in to schedule an appointment. So that's inactive 1. If you want, you can push out an additional 30 days or an additional 120 days, whatever makes sense. If you come down to inactive 2, again, essentially the same message is written slightly different. According to our records, your vehicle was last in for service on this date. If you're an average mileage driver, your vehicle may be due for this, this, and this, and then giving the customer, again, that last chance to book an appointment to come in. Okay. So that's the cycle of the 7 messages. Now, of course, I'm going to hop over to postcards here real quick. And you'll notice that you have the same 7 messages available on postcard. But before I go into some of the samples here, there's one checkbox down here that I want to make note of. So if you look at the very bottom, it says, do not send a postcard if the customer has an email address. So most shops check this off because ideally the email services are included in your subscription, okay? And then of course, anyone that you don't have an email for, we could send a postcard in its place. But you have the option to check this or uncheck this. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so let me kind of go up here and show you a few more examples. You'll also notice that under reminder 1, we've got 25 days versus the 10 days. Again, we're adjusting the interval a little bit just to accommodate for print and mail time. And you'll notice that in some cases we're turning some of them off. Again, it probably doesn't make sense necessarily to send all of them on the postcard side. So I'll just show you a couple examples here. So if I do a preview of reminder 1, again, very similar to the email, obviously we're just bringing it into a postcard format. Where did the time go? It's time for your next service. This bottom section here can be completely customized, obviously like a branding strip. And then we've got some either stock images for you to choose from, or you can provide images, obviously, to have a more personalized approach. Okay, so the back of the card has some additional spaces for the text. The same message applies here. Coupons, offers, additional logos, whatever the case may be. In some cases, I have a few shops that have some co-op branding opportunities where they can take advantage of that, and of course, we can accommodate that as well. Okay, so I won't cover anything more there. One other thing, let me go back into the slides here, and I'm really far behind here. So the one thing that we want to cover is contact and vehicle control. Okay, so if I go back to the Home tab and I click on Contacts, okay, if I double click on my name, let me just bring the window over, okay, you're going to notice that under Contact Method here, just below there's these 2 checkboxes. So at the contact level, you can control whether or not a customer wants to receive reminders, okay? So because there's an email address here on file for me here, by default, based on the setting that I just explained, by default, I would get an email, okay? But let's say I were to tell you that, I would rather receive a postcard. I don't really look at my email very often. I can come in here, click on this, and then the no postcard is left unchecked, and therefore I will get postcards moving forward, okay? If I say to you that I don't want to receive anything, I can come in here and check both of them. And of course, the other thing that I didn't mention before is on the email side, if a customer unsubscribes from the service, then this no email checkbox will automatically get populated. So this way you don't have to manage that. Okay, so that aside, if I uncheck both of these, whatever you do here trickles down to all of your vehicles. So it's important to note this. So let's say you want to control it at the vehicle level. Perhaps I had multiple vehicles. In this case, it's only showing one, but let's say I had multiple vehicles. So let me just close this off and come up here and open up the vehicle card. Okay, so you'll notice on the vehicle card, bottom left-hand side, the same two checkboxes are available. So let's say this vehicle, I don't want to receive reminders. So I check those off, and that vehicle no longer receives reminders. No thank yous, no appointment reminders, nothing. Okay, but let's say I have another vehicle, and I want to receive reminders on that vehicle. So I would come in here, and I would uncheck them. So that allows you to control it either at the vehicle level or at the contact level. Okay. So that's how you control what emails and postcards go out to your customers. So the last area that I want to cover here is reports, and there's a few other things afterwards, but let me just go into reports real quick. So under reports, under all reports, you have access to basically all of the CRM reports. Now there's a lot of them in here. We're not going to go through a lot of the details right now, but the whole idea is that once you've used the CRM 360 service for about 6, 9, maybe even 12 months, we'll have a review and look at sort of the results that you've had with them. And because there's really not enough data in it initially to look at that information. But let's just start with one of them just so you can get a sense of what's available. So if I go under CRM email listing, if I double click on that here, there's no data in this report right now because obviously this is just a demo database. However, you can select a date range, so a start and an end date. And for example, you'll see within that date range, you're going to see the date in which a specific email has been sent, the type of email, the customer's name, the email address, and then there are these 4 columns here to the right on how you can interpret them. So read and unsubscribed, fairly straightforward, but these 2 here are important. So for example, if a customer has received the email, likely it'll be checked under sent, nothing under rejected. If they haven't received it, likely it's been rejected, perhaps due to a bad email address. Okay, so perhaps you're going to come into this report a couple times a month just to verify if there's any email addresses that you need to reach out to your customer to get updated, especially if you want them to receive the reminders. Okay, so from there too, we have email returns and email return summary. I'll just open up one of these real quick. Again, these are one of the reports that we'll probably review in the future after you've had enough data to look at. The idea is, again, the type, email sent, contacts, contact returns, the return percentage within that date range, the return dollars, and the average spend. Okay, so here's how I look at this report. Once you actually have data in here, you're probably going to look at this more as a bird's eye view into your business because, again, I don't want to ever claim that a customer has returned specifically because of an email or a postcard. They may have been coming back anyway. So rather than looking at it from that perspective, we look at a bird's eye view into your business, and then ultimately, again, 6, 9, maybe 12 months out, we're likely going to look at your customer loyalty instead to get a sense of if your loyalty is improving. And hopefully we're going to play a part in that and getting that up. Okay, so next steps. How do we get started? So it's simple. After we've had our conversation and we've figured out what you want to move forward with, you're going to send me some order forms. They're going to be filled out based on the services that you've selected. I'll have you fill out the message template. So it's a Word document that includes all 7 messages. You can make edits to them to obviously fit the way you run your business. And third, at the very least, I need a high resolution logo to get started on the design. Of course, if you want to provide graphics and or additional images, then of course that's great too. Okay, so how you get in touch with me if you're interested in any of these services is I'll start with just an email. You can send an email to ian@protractor.com, and then I will schedule a time that we can get in touch for at least about 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes, answer any questions, and then if you're interested in getting started, then we'll start the process. Okay, so that's about it for me, unless, Doug, you had any other things to bring up, but I will bring up this last slide.
No, I think we're good. So we'll take time for some questions. There is one question up.
Okay.
So, Ian did a great job, much better than I do. He's done in 30 minutes. I usually go over, so maybe we'll get Ian to do some of the future webinars here. All right, so
maybe that's the first webinar experience. That's why.
Great job.
Go ahead.
Great job. Okay, so we've got one question posted, and Ian, you might chime in on this one. I don't know if you can see them, but let me read them out. There are many times where our emails go into a customer's junk email. Can we not send reminders via text messages? So probably two questions. Why is it going to junk mail? Is there anything we can do about that? And are we going to be doing reminders through text message? You have those answers, Ian?
I certainly do. So number one, so the junk mail issue, that's a constantly changing problem. Okay, so there's a couple things. A recent problem came up where we sort of discovered that it was a little higher than normal. And so there's sort of a workaround that we're working with to help reduce that. And I think this question is from Joe, and I think we've spoken before. So Joe, if you want to email me directly and we can kind of touch base and figure out what the problems are specifically, and I can maybe address how we've been working around that issue with some of the other shops. So maybe we haven't done that for you already. In terms of text messaging, it is a feature request that I've heard from a lot of shop owners. So I can't really speak on development other than I do know that it is a feature request. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you, again, email me that information and I can pass that along to our team so that they know that there's more demand for it.
Okay. All right, so hopefully that'll answer your question, Joe, and if not, get with Ian directly there. We've got another question from Patty.
Hi, Patty.
When a next appointment is scheduled, why does it not get scheduled? Why does it get scheduled again and not get caught when posting the next invoice? When a next appointment is scheduled, why does it get scheduled again and not get caught? I'm not really following that. Does that make sense to you, Ian? Are you seeing the questions, or?
I see part of the question. Patty, I wonder if what you're asking is if, let's say, for example, you've pre-booked the appointment and then let's say a customer just happens to call in and they happen to book another appointment. I think maybe that's what you're asking. That's a good question. I don't know, maybe Jeff, is that something that you could address? I don't know, I'm assuming that's what the question is. Have you come across this at all, Jeff, or even Doug?
I haven't. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah.
Alan, if Alan's
I make an appointment. When I post out a ticket, I write another ticket, say a week later, and it makes the appointment again, instead of letting me know there's already an appointment for that person.
I see. Okay. I know in our legacy version of the software, it certainly took care of that. That would be more a question for, I guess, Jeff and Doug.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that.
We'll have a look at it. Okay, Patty, I've got your information. I can. I've written that. I've written a note down, so I will touch base with you on that.
Okay. Patty's got another question. What does that mean? Patty, let us look into that. Normally, there would be a warning, very similar to when you have a work order going and you open another work order, the software will give you a warning saying this vehicle, this customer already has a work order going. So do you want to use that, or do you want to start a new one? If you'll give us a chance to look into that, we'll get directly back with you or post something on the webinar, on the help system under the webinar with those answers, okay? Okay, Kevin has a question. How do you change the reminder to take into account synthetic oil or generic oil? One is even every 4 months and the other is held off longer. The answer to that, Kevin, and Ian, if you wanted to bring up your vehicle record there.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Here we go.
Okay. So I'll just grab it from you here, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so
sorry, one second. There you go.
Okay, so in the case of Ian, on the reminder, okay, when we apply the reminder, that's going to be the agreement with your customer. So we talked about this a little bit last week, but knowing that some of you may not have been on, or we want to expand on that. So when I actually set this reminder with the customer, I want to have a conversation with them. I want to get their buy-in. And that's where we identify, okay, what oil do you usually use? You have that in your records, or if it's a new customer, again, you want to have that conversation, and that's going to determine the interval right here. So if I understand your question right, each interval for a reminder, whether it's an oil change, tire rotation, whatever it is completely customizable. So if this would be a conventional oil change, and maybe Ian said, I want to start using synthetic oil, then we can easily go in here and put in whatever interval we want. So in the example that I would use, I normally set up 3 months. I'm in the US, so I usually set up 3 months, 3,000 miles, okay? So if the customer changes to synthetic oil, maybe we need to change that to 5 months and 5,000 miles. So each reminder is customizable. And wherever you, again, like we said last webinar, wherever you can touch the vehicle, you're going to be able to touch and edit the reminders. So work with your customers, get your customers buy-in, make recommendations, or deal with it on what they want to do. And now you've got the customer's buy-in. So I'm hoping that answers your question, Kevin. Each reminder is unique to the vehicle, okay?
And that's perfect, Doug. I just, Kevin, just further to what Doug had mentioned, and this is why I was trying to make a point of reminders being more accurate. So if you have a reminder attached to the vehicle versus just using the next appointment default interval, again, it's going to give you a much more accurate next recommended suggested appointment date. So I think that's where it ties in.
You'll want to remember another thing that we touched on in the last webinar, which is there's an algorithm. And what Ian said earlier in the presentation today is the more your customer visits with you, the more frequency, the more history that you have, the software is going to start doing calculations. And I'm going to Ian, it doesn't want it. There we go. It's going to start doing calculations, and it's going to give you an estimated use. So if we only had one visit from the customer, then that's not really anything. I can only estimate on that information. But if I had done 2 or 3 or 4 oil changes on Ian's vehicle before, I'm going to be able to start using and calculating those numbers. So now I know, well, all of a sudden Ian's starting to drive, 8,000 kilometers every 2 months instead of every 3-4 months. The software will start to calculate that from history visits, and it will start to set the dates, not strictly on 120 days, but on how many days our software sees that you're driving the 8,000 kilometers. So it'll start helping you with those, okay? So again, Kevin, hopefully that answers your question. If not, let us know. Okay, great. Good deal. Guys, we have some time left. Very unusual for our webinars, so now is a great time. If you have any questions of any kind dealing with the customer relationship, even the reminders, we'll try and help you with those with the time we have left. If not, I said this on the last webinar on the reminders. I want to plant a seed for everybody, so I'm going to babble just a little bit, because this is very important, and one of the things we really want to watch in our business is the loyalty. The frequency of visits, the money spent is usually what that's based upon. But I want to tell you guys a brief little story about a personal experience, and I'll just be real honest with you. My family has always had problems with our teeth. Okay, and I struggled having cavities and everything all along, and you're wondering, where is this coming from? Well, people struggle with their cars. They have problems. And about 10 years ago, my dentist told me, listen, I've got an answer for you. Why don't we bring you in on a rigid schedule and have your teeth cleaned and inspected? Okay, and I'm going to tell you, as of today, in the last 10 years, I've not had a cavity. I've not had a problem of any kind. And you're wondering, how does this relate? Cars last longer today. They don't break down as much. Essentially, all they require is maintenance. I just passed 200,000 miles on my truck. I get my fluids changed every 60,000 miles. I get my oil changed. As a matter of fact, it's down at the shop getting an oil change today. Okay, so I haven't had breakdowns. Hopefully I don't have any problems this weekend, but I'm just trying to explain to you, you know, educate. I never thought of that. My dentist said, why don't we get you on this? Now, what that brings me to is today, try and get out of the dentist office without booking your next visit. So if we take that theory, we're going to get customers to spend less money. I'm not paying for cavities anymore, broken teeth or problems. All I do is pay my maintenance fees to have my teeth cleaned. My mouth feels better, my teeth feel better, I feel better. So you can kind of use that relationship to your vehicle. It's a good scenario to think about. And a lot of times customers just need that understanding about their car, okay? They just need that understanding. So keep that in mind. And if there aren't any more questions, I'll let you guys go home and think about your next dentist visit. And I'm sure we've all got things to do if not. So last chance, any questions, anybody, reminders, CRM, any questions of any kind? Okay, guys, then we might as well close this meeting down for today. Ian, you want to bring that last slide back up, and let's just let everybody know when our next webinar is?
Absolutely.
Okay, so next webinar on bottom left, June 15th. Again, everything will be posted under the help system, the recording, any support documents. If you guys have any questions, just please let us know, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the 15th of June. Hope you have a great day.